I'm so glad to be here today. Thank you to Historic Hope and Dr. Speller for the invitation. I'm Caroline Stephenson. I am from the Murfreesboro area, from Hertford County. This is my second year speaking at Historic Hope. Last year I talked about Hannah Crafts, who's also one of my heroes. I'm about to talk about, really Alice Eley Jones is, I would call her a mentor to me. Our families are very connected and intertwined, and she's from Murfreesboro also, and this is just a very brief overview of her life and work. Alice could not be here with us today, but she's thinking about us, and she's super excited to hear how it went, so I'm going to give her the report when we're done. So I'll go ahead and get started. So this is Deeply Rooted Miss Alice Eley Jones Historian. So she was born in Hertford County in Murfreesboro in 1949. This is the birth index, and you can see her line here. She was born in January, Eley Alice Jane, and that's her father's name, Fred Douglas Eley in Murfreesboro. And here's the 1950 census, and you can also see her family. She lived with her grandparents. So her grandfather was named Charlie Perkins. Her grandmother was named Minnie Perkins. Her mother, Iris Eley. Her father, Fred. And there's Alice Jane in the 1950 census, listed as a granddaughter. And her sister, Jackie, was born at that time also. Oh, thank you. Fancy. Very fancy. And this is, obviously, the 1950 census is the most current census that has been released. There are no further ones, but I'll talk about where she's been over the decades. So before I talk about Alice, I'm going to talk about her grandmother. So her grandmother was a woman named Minnie Wood Perkins. So she was Alice's grandmother. And Minnie Wood Perkins was a huge influence in my life as a child. So this is a little bio that Alice wrote about her grandmother. Minnie Wood Perkins was born in 1910. She passed away in 1995. She was from Northampton County. Her maiden name was Flood, and she went to Waters Training School. And then she did get married to a dean's man, and they had one child who's Alice's mother. Her name was Iris in 1931. Then she married Charlie Perkins, who you just saw on the census, and worked as a domestic in Murfreesboro until she was encouraged by Dr. Futrell to seek a career as a midwife. So the World War II baby boom increased the need for prenatal and postnatal care providers, and with the help and encouragement of Reverend and Mrs. Rowson and Dr. Futrell, she attended Minnie Perkins attended classes in Fayetteville and began her 40-year career as a midwife. So Minnie Wood Perkins was also a member of First Baptist in Murfreesboro. She was very devoted in her faith, and she loved her grandchildren, who included Alice Jane, Jackie, Fred Jr., Ann, April, and Herbert. And they called their grandmother Mama, and there were always a lot of people who dropped by to see Minnie Wood Perkins, and she has really a huge legacy in Murfreesboro even today, particularly for people my age and older. And then she died in 1995. So this is Alice's grandmother in the 40s. This is like a classic photo at Seaview Beach in Norfolk. This photo, it's from my dad, Frank Stephenson's collection, but he got it from Joel Holland, who was a photographer in Murfreesboro as well. So this is Alice's grandmother, Minnie Wood Perkins. And Minnie Wood Perkins, let me go back. She basically was a caregiver to my brothers and I in the 70s. So when my oldest brother was born in 1966, my mother came home from the hospital in Husky and handed my oldest brother to Minnie Wood Perkins. And she was with us for many, many years after that. Really huge influence on my life. So First Baptist Murfreesboro was a very important Black institution in Murfreesboro. Originally, it was located on East Broad Street. It was founded right after the Civil War, and basically members, this is what Alice told me yesterday, African American members of Meharrin, which is another Baptist church in Murfreesboro, basically split after the Civil War and formed their own church, which became First Baptist Murfreesboro. And it was located on East Broad Street. It was destroyed by fire in September of 1979, and then it was rebuilt on US 158 next to Riverview. And this photo is from Alice's collection at Chowan. She has a collection of archival material at the Chowan Library. So First Baptist was really important to Minnie Wood Perkins, to Alice and her family. So part of that importance came from the Rowson family. So the Rowsons, this is Mrs. Reverend George T. and Mrs. Lavinia Rowson. So he was he was the pastor at First Baptist Murfreesboro, and then Mrs. Rowson taught Sunday school there. She also had a kindergarten there, like a private kindergarten at the church, and they also taught at C.S. Brown in Winton. They were educators, and he was a pastor. So the Rowsons originally came from the Columbia, North Carolina area, and they have a history, further east from here. But the Rowson family were very highly regarded in Murfreesboro, and Alice has done a huge, just a huge job of keeping their name and their memory alive, because they were really super important people to the Black community in Murfreesboro in the early 20th century. So these photos are from the C.S. Brown 1949 yearbook. So this is the Love and Charity Hall, which was next to First Baptist in Murfreesboro. It was a wooden structure. It was probably actually the original church building that then after they built the other church building in the previous photo, then they used this as like a kind of a fellowship hall. So Mrs. Rowson, this is her kindergarten class in the 50s. And that is Mrs. Rowson right there. But Alice Eley Jones was one of Mrs. Rowson's kindergarten students at First Baptist. So education, there are these themes in Alice Eley's life and family. So education is really, really important to her family. So she went to this kindergarten run by Mrs. Rowson in 1955. So this is Alice Eley's mom, Iris Eley. Mrs. Iris Eley, she just passed away in January, so like last month. So she lived a nice long life, but she was also very involved in First Baptist Murfreesboro, like her mother, Minnie Wood Perkins, before her. So here's a quote from Dr. Dudley Flood. So if you don't know who Dr. Flood is, he's the educator. He lives in Raleigh now, but he's originally from Hertford County. And we're really all connected. It's kind of scary how connected we all are. But Dr. Flood taught Alice Eley Jones. He was her teacher. And I called him and I said, can you just give me a little info on your former student? So this is what he said. Alice was my student first at Riverview, but later throughout her career. We have been mentors for each other for all the years since. I often reminded her that education works both for the learner and the teacher. Socrates taught Plato, Plato taught Aristotle, then Aristotle taught Socrates. So Dr. Flood holds Alice Eley Jones in very high regard. And that says a lot coming from him because he's really just had his own brilliant life and career as well. So, originally, Alice Eley Jones went to Mrs. Rowson's kindergarten. Then she went to C.S. Brown in Winton. So Hereford County had segregated schools like the whole rest of the South. So there were two African American high schools in Hereford County. One was R.L. Van, which is in Ahoskie, and one was C.S. Brown, which was in Winton. So since Alice lived in Murfreesboro, she went to C.S. Brown. So, but then she had a chance to go to Murfreesboro High School. So that was a white school. So she went to Murfreesboro High School pre-integration through the school choice program. So several really brave people, I think, went before integration, and she was one of them. So these pictures are from the 1966 and 67 Murfreesboro High yearbook. Alice Eley was in the class with my dad's younger sister, so my aunt, and Alice said of her time at Murfreesboro High, like obviously here she is, she's the only African American in this photo, or on this page, and on this page. It was difficult just being the only one at times, but she also felt like the challenge or the difficulty, being uncomfortable, as Dr. Speller said, was really worth it, because she was there, like Dr. Flood said, she was learning, but she was also teaching at the same time. So, and schools in Hereford County didn't integrate until the fall of 1970, really, really late. So she was really a pioneer in terms of early, pre-integration, really. So then after she graduated from Murfreesboro High School, she went to Shaw for a year, and then in 1968 she attended Shaw. Then she transferred to NC Central and graduated with a history degree in 1973. Do you remember her from Central, Dr. Speller? Were you there? Yeah. Oh, okay, all right. Then after she graduated in 73 with her undergrad, she moved to Alexandria, Virginia, and lived there for several years and worked as a teacher and a social worker. But then in 1978, she moved back to Durham and started her grad degree. So, when she was back as a grad student. Okay. Mm-hmm. So then she did get her grad degree from NC Central. She received the Stagville Fellowship, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. She taught at NC Central, and then she moved back to Murfreesboro in 2001. And when she moved back to this area is when she really began focusing on her writing. So these are just some photos from her at NC Central. Basically, she's a leader. She's always been a leader. She's always been out in front of the curve, so there's a delegation of like international students and other teachers, and she was right there showing them around. So this is from 1989 when she was teaching at NC Central. So basically, kind of like what Dr. Speller touched on, a lot of historic sites and plantations really didn't start interpreting the African American story until the 80s or 90s or even later. So she was a Stagville Fellow, and basically that was on two occasions in 85 and 86. So she basically, her early research became the basis for the history of enslaved communities at Stagville. She wrote articles and conducted oral histories with Stagville's descendants that are still extremely significant there. Oh, I'm sorry, Stagville is near Durham. I think it's a state historic site. Yeah. So. Wow. And this is what she said. She told me yesterday about Stagville. One of the reasons I was able to get the Stagville Fellowship was because of what I learned from Mama, who is Minnie Wood Perkins, who I talked about earlier. She taught me how to sew, cook, garden, quilt, and make soap. I witnessed her and participated with her doing these things. So, and a lot of those things were handed down generation to generation. So Minnie Wood Perkins most likely learned that from her mother and grandmother, and then and participated in it, just like Alice Eley participated in it with her grandmother. So that's she kind of, and a lot of those activities, even though Alice learned them in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, a lot of it really hadn't changed over, since people were enslaved. A lot of it was just still kind of done in the same way people always did it. So this is Alice Ely Jones at Stagville with Rosa Parks. So this was in 1996. Alice would go back to Stagville for different events and activities, and this is from Alice's book. She met Rosa Parks. She also told me, I really need to get you my picture, the picture I have with Bill Clinton. I need to get that to you. So I was like, go ahead. I don't know Bill Clinton, so good for you. So this is her famous sweet potato pie recipe. This was in the News and Observer in 1996. So again, these are things that she were handed down to her, that she learned through the women in her family. And women is a huge theme in her life. Women, education, church, history, family, all of these themes run through her life. So in 2002, she published a book with Arcadia, the Black America series about Hertford County. So when she moved back to this area in 2001, that's when she really focused on her writing. And those books are for sale in the lobby if anybody's looking for them. Thanks to the Murfreesboro Historical Association. Thank you. And then she did do a project at Historic Hope in conjunction with NC Central in 1999. And there were 2 books that came out of this project. The Carpentry and Woodworking Tools of Hope, and also within the Hope household, Cultural History of Bertie County. So she did some work right here at this place. So in 2002, she started the Rowson Memorial Lecture at Chowan. So the Rowson Lecture still goes on to this day, and basically it honors the legacy of the Rowson family, but it also honors modern day or current significant people in the community. It's usually the first week of February at Chowan. It's really a great event. I was able to go this year. The fact that it was founded in 2002, and here we are in 2025, I think, that is a testament to the importance of this event. And, just again, to honor the legacy of the Rowsons, who had such an impact on African-American life and education in Murfreesboro. So she also, in 2009, she also, came and did talks like here, like I'm doing right now at Historic Hope. So this is an article about her being here in the Chowan Herald in 2009. So she really did get around. Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I would like everybody to notice the source of your information.
Mm-hmm.
That's a web page that's free to use, and you can go there, and it's again digitized records, so you can go back. I can go back and look at my yearbook in Rick's elementary what I look for. All of these books and things are available. Plus many newspapers, like we've traced the history of the Civil War monuments and stuff, just you can go all the way back into early history. Thank you.
Oh, yes, ma'am. Digital, that's a good point. Digital NC is free. And, you know, obviously Ancestry is not free. Newspapers.com is not free. So those are sources I use a lot are Ancestry and newspapers.com. But Digital NC is pretty decent. There's some good stuff up there. And it's great not to have to go to Chapel Hill or to the archives in Raleigh. It's great to, you know, look there first. And it is pretty thorough. So here's some pictures by Marvin Jones of Alice at an event. There's Dr. Speller. Look how cute you look. That's in 2007. So she has a connection to Hope in addition to her work at, you know, at Stagville and in Murfreesboro. So here's a partial bibliography of her books. Yes, sir. Oh, great. Great. Thank you. So here's a partial bibliography of her books. I found this on Goodreads. And again, some of these are also available in the lobby from the Murfreesboro Historical Association. So her books are really important just to have as reference. I use them all the time, looking up different things. So I wanted to talk a minute about the Cultivator, which is a nonprofit in Murfreesboro that does a lot of different things, but we also really promote African American history in Murfreesboro. So we have a historic marker program. We put up 3 markers since 2019. Our first one was to Ruffin Brothers Grocery, which Jackie Ruffin's family ran for many years. Our second one was to African American education, and our third one that we dedicated last November was to African American baseball. So I always get Alice to vet the text of our markers. So, and she's really, well, she knows a lot about a lot, but she's also like, don't forget the women. Make sure you mention the women. History's not just about men. So because of that comment, you know, we added to the Ruffin Brothers marker, we added info about Lula Ruffin, who was Jacob Ruffin Sr.'s wife. So without her making that, I think, you know, you just don't think about it. But, you know, she has this great way of making sure, like, you do it right. So we're very glad to have her assist us with information and accuracy for our historic marker program. So, and those are, you know, around the town of Murfreesboro. So she has archival collections at the Whitaker Library at Chowan in Murfreesboro. So I went there to research this presentation, and she also has items at the Wilson Special Collection Library at UNC Chapel Hill, if you're looking to research her some more. So Cultivator owns the Reynolds-Myrick House in Murfreesboro, which is circa 1855. So I've been talking to Alice about this project. This is in the Murfreesboro Historic District. It's at 2nd and Broad Street. So our plan is to do more research and renovate it to be an African American history museum and research space. So Alice has said that she would, when we get further along, this is how it looks right now. I know it doesn't look great, but it was owned by Murfreesboro's first African American postmaster, a man named George Reynolds. And then later it was owned by the Myrick, an African American Myrick family who were really important farmers and members of First Baptist. So some of her collection, God willing, will be in our museum in Murfreesboro as well. And then she always signed her emails and her letters with this quote. until the Lions have their own historians, the history of the hunt will always glorify the hunter. So I always think about that because it's really very true. You know, you have to tell it. You have to tell it, you know, because it's really important. So thank you all. This is a picture of me. I'm going to end on this with Alice Eley's grandmother, Minnie Wood Perkins, in 1988. So she was a great lady and a huge influence on my life, as well as her granddaughter, Alice Eley Jones. So that's the end of